Hey, what's up, everybody? Just thought I'd do a little flip vid here. This is kind of a follow up to the last one I just posted on YouTube, which was through my metal records. So now I'm going to go through some of my punk collection, and then later on, I'm probably going to probably do a video of my top 10 pick punk records overall. So hope everybody's doing okay out there. I want to give a special shout out to some of the rock DJs I've been playing with lately, like KJ and Candace and Luke Martin. Big thanks to them for hosting me or having me on as a guest at some of their nights at the Targ and the Dom. Definitely starting to miss some of those vinyl sets. Maybe I'll do a live vinyl set at some point too with the turntables over there. But for now, I'm just going to get into. So this is going to be a punk selection from my record collection, and then I'll post it probably on YouTube as well. I've got it alphabetized, and I've got about 3 bins worth here to go through. Like I said, I already did the metal one earlier. Shout out to those watching on the live stream right now too. So starting off with Angry Simone's. This is a classic punk. We're in the punk section, punk record. I got the reissue of that. I actually slept on an original pressing of that when I down in the States last year, so a little bit disappointed with that. Reissue of The Accused, Martha Splatter record. This is an original press of the Asexuals, Be What You Want LP, and I'm a huge fan of this record. This might be in my top 10 all-time, definitely top 20 all-time punk records. Love the Asexuals. They're from Canada. They're Toronto area, I think. They're Canadian, 80s. Agent Orange, speaking of 80s punk, this has Pipeline on it. The Bloodstains, Living in the Darkness EP, and then a later Agent Orange, which I've always been a big fan of this album too. This is The Voice. I used to have this on cassette. This is sort of early skate punk, pop, almost what would lead into pop punk, but done a lot better, obviously, back in the 80s. Then we get into my Black Flag section. So you got the first 4 years, that's covered. You've got the EP, Annihilate This Week, with Henry Rollins on vocals. Hank on vocals for Damaged. This is my original copy of Damaged from way back when I was a kid on Roadrunner Records. One of the first punk albums I ever owned and never got rid of, and still play it today. Louie Louie's on there, all the hits, Rise Above, Slip It In, Black Flag, My War, Black Flag. These are reissues, but I owned these when I was younger too. So I was a huge Black Flag fan from pretty much the get-go. Definitely from the Rollins era on. This is an instrumental one, Day Everything Went Black. Then we get into Bauhaus. Some of these are more reissues. That's the first album. More Bauhaus. My Buzzcocks section, Fast Cars. That's like a live album. Different kind of tension. And different kind of kitchen. So I've got some Buzzcocks definitely covered. This is a reissue I got actually in LA last year, around this time actually last year during my birthday. I've been playing a lot of Buzzcocks in my rock sets, my punk and rock sets. Big Black, I'm a huge Steve Albini fan, of course, despite his opinion of dance music and DJing in general. But Big Black and Steve Albini. The Hammer Party. This is the earlier stuff that I wasn't so much into the Hammer Party, and I didn't even really hear a lot of it at first. I was probably more introduced to Racer X, that EP. Pig Pile is a live album. It came out a little later. The Headache EP, I loved that when I was younger. The Reish. Just going to wave to everybody who's watching right now. Big Black songs about fucking. That kind of brings it all together. El Dopa's on there. Bunch of great songs. And you got Bad Brains. I only have one Bad Brains record in the collection. This one kind of does it for me. I am a Bad Brains fan, but I don't feel like I need 4 albums of them. But that's what it is. So we're in the B's right now of my punk collection for those just tuning in. The Birthday Party featuring Lydia Lunch. Classic. Nick Cave, I believe. So Australian. Then we got my Butthole Surfers section. Cream Corn from Socket of Davis. These guys, live PCP. I just love this band from Texas. They're nuts. Kind of one of the first experimental bands I would have ever heard of when I was young. Experimental punk, psychedelic punk. This is all stuff from the 80s, before their 90s, kind of more alternative run. Again, this is music before alternative was even kind of coined. I think in some cases this would have been called college rock, post-punk, out there stuff. And then that's the last Butthole Surfers record I have in the collection. I got about 5 or 6, I think I pulled out of there. Locust Abortion Technician, a big fave of mine. Amazing album. Touch and Go label out of Chicago too. Getting in my Cramped section, Songs the Lord Taught Us. That's an original press, like first album. This is a repress of the EP, Greatest Hits. Play that a lot in my DJ sessions, especially for punk rock sessions. Bad Music for Bad People. I used to have this as a t-shirt when I was a kid, like maybe 10 or 12 years old. And my mom brought me to Toronto one year, and I remember wearing this on the streets, and some older punk was like, "Hey man, cool shirt." I didn't even have the album actually, but I loved the Cramps when I was a kid. Loved the Garbage Man video. And this live album, of course, Rockin' and Reelin' in Auckland, New Zealand, which has the Bird song on there. Circle Jerks. That's the Group Sex album. It's a reissue. It's an original press of Wild in the Streets. I always loved Circle Jerks. I had Wonderful when I was younger. I didn't really have these earlier albums, and they are far more hardcore punk than Wonderful. Well, although Wonderful is amazing too. Don't have Wonderful now, though, on vinyl. Need to get that one still. Just here in the C section, we got Corrosion of Conformity, Technocracy. This is crossover punk metal. It's on Death Records. Metal Blade as well. Love these guys. Love the early stuff that's hardcore like that. Their later stuff, they're still making music, and they're much more, I don't know, slower metal now, kind of grungy. We got some Crass. Yes, Sir, I Will. This is a great Crass compilation. Best Before, double EP, double album. Got that at Vertigo, I think, in Ottawa. Creepers, Babies on Fire. Which is a cover of a Brian Eno song. Dead Kennedys section now. Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. This will probably go in my top 10 punk albums of all time. Easily. Huge Dead Kennedys fan from day one. I used to have this on cassette. Still have the tape. That's a reissue. This is the original press of Plastic Surgery Disasters. You got Government Flu on here. Terminal Preppy. Trust Your Mechanic, Well Paid Scientist, Buzz Bomb, Forest Fire. I mean, I think that's just side A. Oh, there's even more. Winnipeg Warrior, Dead Moon, Moon Over Marin. Like, wow, what an album. That would definitely be my top 10 punk albums of all time. And I have, I think, at least two, maybe 3 copies of that album on vinyl. Love that Dead Kennedys album. This is the EP, In God We Trust, with the Nazi Punks Fuck Off song. Classic. I used to have an original press of that. That's a reissue. Frankenchrist, another great album. And the last studio album by Dead Kennedys, Bedtime for Democracy, which has grown on me even more in later years. But all the Dead Kennedys albums are great. Love the Dead Kennedys with Jello Biafra. I don't think I'd see the new Dead Kennedys with another singer. It doesn't make sense. Dag Nasty. Just got the one EP from them. That was on Discord, Minor Threats label. Some Washington, D.C. Really great stuff. The Dicks, which I just recently discovered. I didn't know them way back when. Legendary punk outfit from Texas on Alternative Tentacles. My Only Damned record, so some goth rock mixed in with my punk section here. Got that in Europe last year. There's some Ottawa Represent, Der Kur. Big ups to Patrick, one of his many bands. Jur, that's a great album. Dry Heave, also some newer stuff, Canadian. These guys from Calgary, they came to play. Played at SodaFest last year, actually. We co-hosted that event. They're kind of more a little bit on the industrial punk side. I think they've got some keyboards. Some Deja Voodoo, classic Canadian. I think Montreal. Swamp of Love. And I've got Cemetery by Deja Voodoo. Those are pretty rare albums to find. Canadian pressings, Og Records, Tony and Gerard Van Herk. That's Deja Voodoo. DOA, War on 45. DBC, Dead Brain Cells, The Descendants. I love these first couple of Descendants albums. That's a live one. Some Devo, that in the punk section. Devo. Dayglow Abortions. Dayglow Abortions. And Dayglow. This was the album that I really dug when I was a kid. A lot of it's pretty rude stuff on there. Good hardcore punk though, Canadian. DRI, Dirty Rotten. This is the Dirty Rotten LP. This is an amazing album. I never even heard that when I was younger. I kind of got that more recently. This is an original press, I think. This was the DRI album I grew up on, dealing with it. Sort of got them into the crossover mode before their official album, Crossover. Oh, little grunge thrown in there. Dinosaur Jr. Bug. It's a reissue. And a newer punk band, Dark Thoughts. They've played here in Ottawa, so I picked up the vinyl. So that gets us up to D. I don't think there's any E's actually in the punk section. Thanks all who are tuning in live. I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel. I did the metal earlier. I'm doing the punk now. So I'll just keep going. F. I go into S and T and maybe a couple compilations. So in F, I'm playing right now some Fall. It's the Fall. This is a compilation of 4 EPs that were put out in the UK. Totally Wired's on here. Another Fall A-sides sort of compilation. This is a Fall, probably can't see it much, a live album, I think. Container Drivers. And this is what I'm playing right now, Yarbles. This was a newer Fall album. They have a huge discography. I'm just touching the surface with some of that. Followed up with Fuzz Tones, some garage punk. This is a live album, live in Europe. Kind of goes well with Cramps. Gasm, brand new hardcore band. This is their one full-length album they put out, I think, last year from Montreal. GBH, No Survivors. I've played this a few times at DJ gigs. Lots of fun. Gruesomes. Loved these guys when I was a kid. Garage punk from Montreal. On the same label as Deja Voodoo. So the 2 Gruesome albums. This is a government issue. Boycott Stab EP. It's something I got from a radio station, it looks like, so it's no cover, promo copy. Gang of Four. This is a great compilation. I think originally released on CD, and I got the vinyl reissue on clear vinyl. Essential for a lot of DJ gigs too. Then some of the Gang of Four singles. I Love Man in Uniform. The Cheeseburger one, To Hell with Poverty. Husker Du, Metal Circus. This is definitely in their more hardcore sound. And then this is a Husker Du EP. Don't want to know if you're lonely, as they're starting to move into more pop melodies, I guess. Just great songwriting from Husker Du and Bob Mould, and I love those guys in the 80s. Also from the 80s, Happy Flowers. This is kind of more obscure, but they were kind of on Touch and Go and those kind of labels. Kind of early grunge, like pre-grunge, really. Half Japanese. I've been talking about these guys a little bit lately to Fraser and everybody. Love these guys. Kind of experimental, minimalist punk. Definitely out there. This is Hated Youth. I never heard of this a long time ago, but it's from '84. It was reissued. Aggie and the Stooges. This is a newer reissue, Rare Power. So it's Raw Power, B-sides, and rarities. Jesus Lizard. Of course, I got to see Jesus Lizard in the 90s in Montreal. I was lucky. I saw them at Cafe Campus. And a big fan of his earlier band. Oh my God, like it's escaping me now, but is it Scratch Acid? Yeah, Scratch Acid, which is coming up. And also got to see David Yao recently fronting Flipper last year in LA. So that was really cool. Lead vocalist of Jesus Lizard. The Jam, Snap. Another Jam album, In the City, classic. I like UK punk. This is a Joy Division record. I think it's like a live concert, 1980. Jesus and Mary Chain, it's a reissue. Obviously, I wish I had the original press, but I loved them when I was a kid. I had the cassette. Killing Joke. What's this for? Classic album. and a later Killing Joke that I've really come to love because I love the single 80s, which is on this one, on Nighttime. A little bit more grunge, L7. Minor Threat, can't go wrong without Minor Threat. A couple Minor Threats. I got a big Fugazi collection somewhere too, but it's not really here in my punk section. I think it's in my storage locker. Mecha Normal, that was a kind of 90s, it was on the K label. Yeah, from Olympia, Washington. So that was sort of in the Sub Pop era of punk and metal. MDC, I got 2 copies of MDC. This is a great album. A real classic from Texas punk again. Some Mudhoney, that's some grunge slipping in there, and No Means No, Canadian punk, minimalist. It was just, what, bass and drums, vocals. Kind of pre-Primus. Some Pill, Public Image Limited, John Lydon's band after Sex Pistols. This is a total bootleg record from Public Image Limited. It's like a live. It's pretty lo-fi, but I love it. It's really cool. Can kind of find it on Discogs, but This Is What You Want, Public Image Limited. This is kind of unlistenable for me, some of this Pill stuff, but I like the ideas, I like the songs. Plasmatics, Butcher Baby. I was just playing this last night on a record listening session on Zoom. Wendy O. Williams, huge fan. Plasmatics. We've got our solo album too, down in the metal section. Pavement, Slanted and Enchanted. So some grunge there. Red Cross. Ramones, the first album. Reish. Ramones. Road to Ruin, original press. Huge fan of this album. Bad Brain, I love that track. Play that a lot in my DJ sets. Rocket to Russia, not the best Ramones album, but still Ramones is amazing. Same thing could be said for Animal Boy, got that too. Somebody Put Something in My Drink, it's a great track on that one. Sort of one of the last Ramones albums that I would pick up. The Retards, I don't listen to this record ever. But I have in my collection because apparently it's worth a lot of money on Discogs. But it's Jay Retard, and I'm not a huge fan of newer punk, as you can tell from my collection, but I got it. It's in there. It's listenable. Raw Power. This is something I would listen to more and more, over and over. After Your Brain. Love this. This is sort of that crossover time, distributed by Fringe Product out of Toronto, and DRI, Dayglow, Raw Power. Amazing. This is something newer I picked up last year, so Reish, Revenge. It's a little tiny EP. It probably was a 7-inch, reissued on 12. It's amazing. Sham 69, got that last year over in Europe. Some UK punk. Sex Pistols, an original press of sorts. And a mini album. Flogging. Subhumans, Worlds Apart. My only Subhumans on vinyl. I'm a huge fan. That's Subhumans UK, of course, not the Vancouver version, who were before the UK version. The Stooges. Slow, one of my all-time fave bands, Canadian punk bands. Against the Glass, they only had this one EP and then a 12-inch. I literally spent decades looking for this album. I used to have it when I was younger, sold it, and then spent literally 20 years looking for this. Found it on Discogs. This is an original press, and of course, in the last year or so, it was reissued. But I'm glad I have the original press. A great EP. Amazing band. Look them up. They're from Vancouver. They had a big controversial show that they played. Sudden Impact, that's more crossover stuff from the 80s. Suicidal Tendencies, the first album, Institutionalized on there. Short Dogs Grow. Superchunk. Scratch Acid, Berserker. This is kind of rare stuff as well in my collection. Be pretty pricey. Another Scratch Acid album, the first album. David Yao on vocals for that. Sonic Youth is the only Sonic Youth record I have. It's an EP, 12-inch. It's a pretty cool one. It's got a lot of experimentation on there and weird outtakes. Beat on the Brat. It's they're going by Ciccone Youth, so it's an homage to Madonna. Smiths, a lot of Smiths. So the first album, Meat is Murder, Hatful of Hollow. Queen is Dead, Strange Ways, and Louder Than Bombs. Huge Smiths fan. Love all their songs. Grew up on that stuff. Some Silverfish. Getting close to the end here, folks. Swans. This is an original, this is a repress, of an older EP, like one of their first EPs. More early Swans repress. This is original press, Holy Money. It's pretty rare Swan stuff. Time is Money Bastard, the EP. A Screw. I used to love this stuff when I was younger. It's really heavy. They kind of created their own genre, really, of no-wave punk. Swans EP. And this is their softer sound, Children of God. Also still a really intense, great album from the 80s. This is a more recent Swans. My Father Will Guide Me Up with a Rope to the Sky. And the Soft Boys. Finally found this on vinyl last year when I was in Europe. Great album. Live at the Portland Arms. I guess a bit of a joke EP in a way, but it's really fun. A Robin Hitchcock's band, I guess. Soft Boys. Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet. For anybody who knows Kids in the Hall in Canada, this is the band that did the soundtrack or the title song. I got the most of their stuff I had and still have is on 7-inch. This is an LP version, which is pretty cool. Susie and the Banshees album, reissued. Some real hardcore punk crust, Six Brew Bantha. They played in Ottawa in recent years. And their other album, Six Brew Bantha from BC. State Poison, this is some newer punk. Speaking of new special interests, I saw them open up for Boy Harsher last year in Santa Cruz. Amazing industrial synth punk. I'll probably do another video soon of my synth records, so stay tuned for that. Just finishing off the punk records, TSOL. Classic. Thatcher on Acid, that's a more obscure UK band, I think. Terminal Sunglasses, this is Canadian punk, so garage punk. Also Canadian garage punk, UIC. This was reissued in recent times. UK Subs. The Vandals. Of course, I posted a picture the other day of an original t-shirt I made in grade school. I had to DIY my own Vandals shirt because that was not available where I was living. But yeah, I was a huge fan of the Vandals, especially after watching Suburbia, the original movie, directed by Penelope Cruz. And the Vandals and D.I. was in that, and what a classic punk movie. Void. This is really early hardcore punk. It's great. It's on Discord. Videos, something kind of newer that I picked up. The Wedding Present. So UK kind of post-punk jangly stuff. The Wedding Present. And then we're into some punk compilations. So I got Oops, Wrong Stereotype. That's on Alternative Tentacles. The God's Favorite Dog compilation, which is on Touch and Go. That has Butthole Surfers, Killdozer, Scratch Acid, a lot of the bands I've been talking about in my collection. Something to Believe In. That's probably one of the first punk compilations I ever bought when I was younger, by a Better Youth organization. I think DOA's on here, and the Nils, and SNFU, and a lot of Canadian punk on there. It's a classic 80s comp. Another classic 80s comp, UKDK, the soundtrack. So, sort of one of the first times I ever heard The Exploited was on there. Alternative Tentacles. This is a great comp. I've been playing this a lot in my DJ sets. It's all covers of Dead Kennedys songs by bands in the 90s. So you've got, I think, L7's on there and a bunch of other bands. This is the Kill the Hippies. Punk 45. These are a compilation of 45s that are super rare and hard to get. It's on Soul Jazz Records. And this is a more recent hardcore punk compilation. I think I might have got that off Scott Jeff. So anyway, everybody, thanks so much for watching, and I'll be posting this up on YouTube. And see you all soon on the next video. Peace.